The new channel. The new channel. Hashtag TNC Now.
The views, opinions, and insights expressed in the following shows are those of the host, producers, guests, and viewers. They do not necessarily reflect the position of the channel. Viewer discretion is advised.
Hello and welcome to the new channel. Our passion transforms a community that sees and shares all things new. This is Frances Bauer, streaming from San Mateo, California, and this is Design Your Life.
Do you like to watch and live vicariously through others' family lives, travels, relationships, passions? This show is here to encourage you to go beyond just dreaming. We'll show you some things that'll stretch your beliefs, and you'll meet some people whose real-world experiences and perspectives just might help you figure out how to go after the life you want, and maybe even break some mental barriers you didn't realize you had. This is Design Your Life with Frances Bauer.
Born in the Philippines, raised in Detroit, Michigan, and having trained and honed his culinary skills in New York and Chicago, Illinois, Carlo Lamagna has come a long way since I last saw him as a fellow pre-med student. A quick web search would reveal that he was one of Plate Magazine's Chefs to Watch in 2018, Starchef's Rising Star Chef in 2018, one of Food and Wine Magazine's Best New Chefs in 2021, James Beard Foundation Finalist's Best Chef for the Pacific and Northwest in 2022, and his restaurant, Magna Kusina, was hailed Restaurant of the Year by the Oregonian in 2021. He's been featured on TV and multiple online foodie magazines, and even won a round on the TV show The Globe, besting 3 fellow chef competitors and winning a trip to Japan. Woohoo! And if all that wasn't enough to look up, you'll find he did a TED Talk on redefining authenticity in cuisine. Joining me today from Portland, Oregon, chef and restaurateur Carlo Lamagna. Welcome, Carlo, to Design Your Life.
Hi, hey, how's it going?
Good. Oh my goodness. And I still have yet to see you in person. The last time I saw you in person, you were just, telling me, I know Dad wants me to be a doctor.
That was, God, many moons ago. Oh my.
Many moons ago. Over 20 years, I think.
We're still in the 19s. The 19s.
Yes.
Ugh,
that long ago. Oh my goodness.
We're still young though.
I know, right? I just yeah. What is it? Asian don't raisin. I love it.
Yeah.
But I wanted to check in with you on that. Gosh, from pre-med student to how many restaurants do you own now? 2. 2, well, and you're opening up another one in Denver.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, that is correct. I mean, we did not end up becoming a doctor. Kind of missed out on that. No, I opened a Filipino restaurant here in Portland, Oregon called Magna Kusina in 2019, and then we opened our second one called Magna Kubo just last year in 2023. I was about to say 2024. It's so crazy. But yeah, we're set to open another restaurant in Denver, Colorado, as well as a rooftop bar some point this year, hopefully in the next few months. But yeah, other than that, everything's good.
I'm sure lots has happened since then, but can you just bring me back? Catch me up. We never really got a chance to really catch up on that. How did that conversation go? All
Well,
this money invested in you being the next doctor of the family,
ugh,
and then
yeah.
how do you even broach that subject to your
Well,
parents?
well, you know how it is. Living in the Philippines and growing up in the Philippines too, is that there's high expectations from us kids, right? To follow in certain footsteps or to become better or do whatever. Never following your dream, but following what's practical and what most people think, right? If it wasn't to become a doctor, it's to become a nurse. If it wasn't to become a nurse, it was to become whatever it's going to be, engineer, lawyer, all these other things. And cooking was never was never even in the picture. But yeah, I mean, after going to school and not doing so well, stay in school, kids. After not doing so well in school, you just find other pathways and other means to make a living. And cooking came about actually in the Philippines. I enjoyed, um, besides school, I did enjoy a good game of billiards. And so in order to kind of help pay for billiard games, I would work at little carinderias just for a little extra cash, whether it's
Oh,
just washing dishes or helping chop something up or whatever. And I kind of caught the bug. My sister introduced me to cooking, like formal style cooking. I mean, of course,
mhm.
growing up, I mean, I'm sure it's the same as you. Growing up, we used to cook all the time, with the family, doing whatever, rolling lumpia, you know, you see your parents making adobo. As a kid, we magkatay kami ng kambing. Then next thing you know, we're like, cleaning all the, doing all the dirty work as
Oh
kids.
yeah, all the
Um,
butchering.
all the butchering, right? But over those years, like to really have a passion for cooking, everything just kept on piling on.
Mm,
Fast forward, I went back to the U.S. in 2000, and I really found that I had an interest in cooking. And so I continued to pursue it professionally. I went to a small school in Michigan, actually,
mhm,
in Detroit. I worked for quite a few years in Detroit before I even moved to New York to go back to school. Um, I had been working in the culinary field at that point for about 7, 8 years, and I went back to
mhm,
school in New York. And then from there, it just kind of snowballed, right? From New York, I moved to Chicago, Chicago to Portland. I did a little bit of time in Europe as well. Um, but yeah, I mean, and here we are. Fast forward to 2024. I lost all my hair from cooking, stress. I had hair. You remember me? Actually, you're one of the few people who probably remember me with hair.
with hair.
So
So
I
you know,
overcompensate with this.
so that's where you're growing your hair, right?
Yeah.
Um, but so a lot of people enjoy cooking, if I may ask. A lot of people enjoy cooking, but not a whole lot of people decide, you know what, I really enjoy cooking. I'm going to do this for a living. How did you know that
You know,
that's
it,
what you
it,
wanted to do for a living? Like that was truly your passion. Like, shoot, there's a lot of things that I enjoy. I don't necessarily want to do them for a living.
yeah, cooking was one of those things that came. It really does stem from childhood, right? A lot of people there,
Mm,
the stories of all these chefs, like, oh, I used to cook at my grandmother's hip, this, that. Yeah, that's commonplace. Anybody who enjoys food will have
mm-hmm,
been involved in their family, cooking, right? But for me,
mm-hmm,
it was actually a very precise moment. It was when, my sister used to cook for me a lot. My entire family, amazing cooks, my brother, my sister, my dad, my mom. But my sister's the one who really, like, she watched cooking shows, she read cookbooks, she would bake, she would try these different recipes from the shows she saw. And so
mm.
at the time I would benefit from that because I would eat it. I would be like, oh, I'm gonna eat whatever you're making.
Like, yeah.
um but then at some point she was sick and tired of me just eating. She's like, you're gonna. And so she taught me how to hold a knife.
Mm-hmm.
How she watched on TV, this is how you hold a knife. This is how you chop an onion. You put it next to your fingers and and I remember from the first time that I cut that onion and cutting a potato in the way that like a chef would, or how I
Mm-hmm.
saw these guys were doing on TV,
Yeah.
it was exhilarating. It was like, oh, I could do this fast. Like I can go faster. I can, and just like any part of me, it's always wanting to be better at something. I didn't necessarily have to be the best, but I always wanted to become better. And
Mm-hmm.
so that's kind of the little seed that got planted, and I took these little skills that I had that I learned along the way, and I utilized that, and it
Mm-hmm.
became a career because, after leaving med school, or not even med school, pre-med,
Pre-med, right?
after
What were
leaving
you taking for
med,
pre-med? I
yeah,
forget.
right. I was a BS psych major. I was a
Psych.
psych major
Psych.
because I wasn't smart enough to get into any other pre-med. Um, but after leaving school, I was like, this isn't. I don't know what to do, and I just remembered cooking, and I was like, you know what, I really want to give a go at this. And I almost went to culinary school in the Philippines, a small little culinary school over there. It was run by some European chef. It was Le Souffle. Remember that restaurant Le Souffle in Katipunan?
Mm-hmm,
There's
mm-hmm.
a culinary school attached to that. And I almost went there, but instead I came back to the US so I could earn some money while I was learning.
Sure.
And yeah, my first job was when I was enrolling into a community college for culinary. I got a job at a place called the Detroit Athletic Club in downtown. My dad actually helped me get the job, and almost zero experience, no formal training. I put on a tie, button down
Hold on.
shirt.
Your dad helped you get that job.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And so
Because
he had gotten over his disappointment of you not being a
well,
doctor
at
at
that
that
point,
point.
he's like, you need to, your ass needs to work. You need to make some money. I was like,
Ah.
oh, okay. So, no, but he knew, yeah, yes, he wasn't the happiest, nor did he understand until later,
Mm-hmm.
what the goal was, but he definitely was supportive. I mean, there are many, many times he's like, why don't you join the Air Force? Why don't
Yeah.
you do the Navy? Don't join the military or work in a bigger hotel where there's like more money. But for me, I knew from the beginning it was never about money. It was more about, okay, let's roll. Let's see how far I can go in this and see where things will take me. And I mean, like I said, gosh, 24, 20, now about 28, 29 years later, 30 years later, like,
Why are we this old? Sorry, go on.
because time passes. Um, no, but ultimately, it's my dad passed away in 2009, but I think ultimately before he passed away, he kind of saw my intention and how where I was going with all this,
Mm-hmm.
and so yeah, I mean, it was amazing. Like, before he passed away, he definitely put a little bit of pressure on me in the sense of like making me promise to continue with Filipino food. He always asked me that my entire cooking times, well, why don't you introduce adobo, why don't you do this, why don't you do that? Of course, any rebellious young child would be like, no, why would I do that? They're not ready for that, or no, that's not what I'm trying to do. I mean, I thought I
Mm-hmm.
was gonna go fine dining, French, Spanish, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
um, but here we are. Like I said, so many years later. I mean, even 10 years after he passed away, 2019. That's when I opened the Filipino restaurant. It just kind of was fitting that it was around that time that I opened. In
Mm-hmm.
kind of dedication to him. I mean, the entire restaurant is dedicated to my entire family.
Mm-hmm.
So we still push it. So
Mm-hmm. Now, before I ask you about the whole, you've actually become somewhat of a Filipino food ambassador in the
mm,
restaurant scene,
sure.
particularly in Portland. But before we even go there, I wanted to ask for the purpose of folks that are watching this and are going, I want to do something different from what my parents wanted me to do, and they already bought all the stuff and put the money into tuition, or there's just so hopeful for me. How do I broach the subject that I'm about to break their heart and their dreams for me, which they have all the best intentions, but this is not what I'm going to do with my life.
Yeah.
What do you
Oh
have
yeah.
to share with that person who's watching today?
I mean, absolutely. It's one of the it's one of the hardest things um is to pursue something, right?
Mm,
Is to pursue something that you're passionate about, that you're in love with. I mean, you said it yourself. It's their dream. It's not yours. I
yeah.
mean, their dream becomes your dream by sheer pressure and sheer, like, just like influence, right? oh, anak, maganyan ka, become a nurse so that you can move to the United States, do this, that, or the other, seek out a better life. Even my mom admitted it. My mom's like, I never wanted to become a nurse. I hated nursing. She's like, I hate that, I hate the sight of blood, or, but she was a nurse for 60 plus years.
Holy smokes.
But that's my thing though. It's like, what she did it because it was a means to an end, right? My dad had a dream. His dream was to become a doctor. I mean, my grandparents weren't doctors. Like his parents were, one was, my grandmother was a teacher and my grandfather was a military guy, but my dad wanted to become a doctor. And in order to pursue that, he was willing to do anything it took. So he became a nurse too, came to the US, saved up money because he grew up poor, saved up money. And then eventually, he met my mom here, married my mom here. Actually had my brother in Canada. I mean, we're Canadian for a very long time.
I remember that. Yeah.
Yeah. And eventually, he pursued his dream. Like he became a doctor. He was an amazing doctor. He was a very smart man. But I think in that pursuit, he always had this dream of like, my dream is now my kid's dream. He wanted us to go in the medical field because it was practical, this, that, or the other. And for me, the hardest part was one, finding out what I wanted to do. I didn't know what I wanted to do. Even when I did have that big blowout conversation with my dad, like we had it out. We had a big fight. I remember I was 18. I was messing up, or 18 or 19. And we had this huge blowout. And I just remember realizing that I wasn't happy, a lot of people don't care about happiness. There's a level of, let's put it this way. You have a goal, you have a dream. Don't expect the most direct route to that dream. You're going to take there's so many paths that you're going to take. There's so many different roads that will lead you to the promised land, that will lead you to where you want to be. But it's not always going to be the most direct. I wasn't the most direct. Like it took me years. Like I had to get kicked out of college, so in order for me to really pursue what I wanted to do, and I had to break the norm. I just did it. Like, and that's the other thing. Just do it. Just do it. And if you're not successful in it, don't be discouraged. You're not gonna know unless you fail. Keep failing. People are so afraid of failing that they don't learn anything. Then the next thing you know, they're stuck, right? Me, I failed so many times. I've owned restaurants before this restaurant, and I failed, and it failed within months. I'm like, oh, this is bad, failures.
Were they Filipino in the wrong area, maybe, or was it your stab at European cuisine?
Well, not really European. It was actually Mexican, which is funny. I partnered with my old boss. He was the owner of the restaurant I worked at. I was the executive chef at. He wanted to open this restaurant, and he asked me to become a partner so I could be the chef, whatever. I said, sure, it'll lead into a Filipino thing eventually. But, we started, I actually, near the end of our life at that restaurant, I started putting on Filipino tacos, like sisig tacos. I did lingua adobo. And it was very popular, but that it just wasn't enough at the time. But here's the thing is, like, that's part of it. I failed hard. And it was in that failure that I learned so many things that helped me in my journey to open my first restaurant, and the second and the third. And I'm not saying that I'm a complete success now. I still fail. I still have failures, losses, but it's, over the years of experience, it teaches you how to deal with those failures, how to overcome those failures and create a learning experience from those failures. That's the most important part. So don't be afraid to fail. God, fall on your face. It doesn't matter. But those are the things. You can't be afraid to tell your parents, to tell whoever is putting you through this stuff, that this isn't what you want to do. Because if you don't love what you do, in my opinion, this is definitely my opinion, you don't love what you do, you're doing it all wrong, right? You're not going to have that level of passion that's going to keep pushing you, to reach better heights, to keep going, to further your career, to do amazing things. It doesn't matter what you're doing, cooking, shit. You can be knitting, I don't care, crocheting, basket weaving. You can be amazing at anything. Be an artist, be a musician, be whatever you want to be. You know, there's so many different individuals out there that I've come, you know, across, and that I've
Mm-hmm.
helped their journey, right? I have friends who are artists that then, you know, they're like, oh, I'm not making it go out. It's like, keep going. I'll support you. Let's do something. Let's figure it out. Don't be discouraged. Just keep pushing yourself, and you'll find that it's better, you know?
So
Yeah.
going back to, thank you, yeah, I hope our viewers today, and if there's with the audience that we have following this show, there's got to be a couple of you out there that are probably struggling with that. So I hope that helps you. Thank you for that, Carlo.
Yeah, of
Now,
course.
moving forward on the topic of Filipino food, why Filipino food? Why didn't you go into do it? Why not a greasy spoon burger and fries diner?
All right.
Tell us about that. Why didn't you do your own little Italian joint? Yeah, clearly, you have the skill set and training to do any and all of that stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I've been cooking for way too long. um,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I've been cooking for over 25 years now. You know, that's
Mm-hmm.
a long time to be doing anything.
Mm.
Um, you know, it's one of those things where I trained under a French chef, Italian chef. I've done Spanish food, and I've gotten quite good at all these different types of cuisines. And honestly, when I was younger in my career, I thought that I was going to uh, go that route. Like I was going to be a chef at a French restaurant, or a chef at a, you know, high end whatever it was going to be. But over time, I realized, like, you know, Filipino food is always, I love Filipino food. I always have, you know, but I've always seen it, just like everybody, most other people, as something very personal. It was mine, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Um, then over the years, I started realizing, it's like, man, you know, there's, you know, Vietnamese food, Korean food, Japanese food. It's getting all these accolades, all these things. I was like, oh, that's cool.
Mm-hmm.
And then when my dad passed away in 2009 from cancer, one of the final conversations that we had in the hospital was that, you know, he said all the things that I needed to hear. Right? It was I'm proud of you, which is a big deal for all of us, right? Especially,
Huge, especially
yeah,
if you're a Lacano.
exactly. Yeah, even
I
more
don't know
so.
how to say that.
Yeah, they did. He did. Um, and but he said something that really kind of set the ball rolling. He said, you know, I'm very proud of who you are and who you've become, but promise me that you'll never forget where you came from and who you are and the culture, right? And who you are, right? Who you are and where you came from are two very, very deep things that anybody, I don't care who you are, those are very deep, um, kind of reflections of
Mm-hmm.
yourself. And so that started the ball rolling. I mean, he passed away, and I remember I started pursuing and thinking about Filipino food from a different angle. I remember the restaurant that I was working on at the time in Chicago. I started putting on Filipino dishes, but I didn't call them by their Filipino name. But like the concept of a silog, you know,
Mm-hmm.
I started kind of toying around with that. You know, instead of rice, we did couscous. Like I did a garlic fried couscous with a pheasant egg, because it was pheasant was the ingredient, right? So it's like, oh, I could do a kind of a take on an inasal with a silog style, you know, presentation.
Mm-hmm.
And then it just kept going. You know, how do you rethink adobo? How do you rethink dishes that you grew up with? How do you rethink, you know, icons of our food, right? Um, and so throughout the years, gained more experience in cooking, obviously my viewpoints changed and evolved into what is now being presented at the restaurants. And even then, what I present at the restaurants is still evolving into different dishes,
Mm-hmm.
different, you know, different iterations. um, we just did a tasting menu a couple 2 weeks ago,
Mm-hmm.
and I rethought balut. You know, I love balut, right? Everybody's like, oh, either oh, you
What
eat
did you
balut,
do
or
to the
oh,
balut,
you,
dude?
huh?
What did you do to the balut?
I mean, so it's funny. I actually sell balut at the restaurant when I have it, right? I
Uh-huh.
tell people it's all about how you tell people. It's all
Okay.
about how you present it, right? So the way
Sure.
that I present balut. eat just the normal way. It's like, oh, I tell people, it's like, you know what, it's been villainized by
Fear
present
factor.
media, right? Fear factor, all these different things put this like
Hmm.
this stigma on what balut is. I was like, if you think about it, it's like the original 3-course menu.
Mm.
It's like first you have the sabao,
A
you
soup,
crack it
yeah.
open and you have this beautiful consomme that's just like really rich in flavor. And then next, if you eat it the order that I eat it, you eat the yolk first and you have this rich and creamy, like the creamiest and richest yolk you're ever going to eat. And
Hmm.
then of course for your final course, the main course, you're gonna have this little, it's like a chicken nugget with texture. Yeah, there's a little crunch, Sometimes if you're lucky, it tickles the back of your throat,
Oh boy.
But I love bullet. So good. Um, but that's the thing though. It's like it's how you present it to somebody.
Hmm.
And so this past tasting menu, we kind of reimagined what bullet is. And if you close your eyes and think about it, when you eat bullet, you get the yolk, you get the rich creaminess, you do get that broth, you get a very intense chicken flavor, and then you actually get offal, right? Because the chick is developed in there, right? So you get a little bit
Yeah.
of this offal like liver
Mm.
flavor. So I just took all that and presented it in technique. So I did a custard, which presents the yolk. I topped it with the consomme, so I made an actual chicken consomme. So it's almost like a Japanese chawanmushi, right? The
Okay.
egg custard. So there's chicken
Mm.
in it, mushroom. There was the consomme in there, the custard. I put chicken skin for crunchy chicken skin on top, and then to top, I put a little bit of chicken liver mousse that we made. And
Oh,
when you eat it,
yum.
yeah, when you eat it all together, if you really analyze it into, because that's all I ever ask of people, close your eyes and take, if it reminds it of a dish, reminds you of a dish, I'm fine. Like I made it. We're good, you know? So yeah.
That's beautiful. Now, I'm thinking about a little bit about your TED talk on redefining authenticity in cuisine. And I know your restaurant, every now and again, someone has to say it. It doesn't taste like how my grandma made it. Therefore, it
Yeah.
is not authentic.
Every
Um,
day. Every day. Every day.
every day,
Somebody.
huh?
Ah,
You got people coming in. Um, for those, for our audience who hasn't seen your TED talk, you care to share a little tidbit on, you know, your take on authenticity in Filipino cuisine? Because a lot of people are doing fusion stuff, and it's always getting mixed reviews. No matter who's doing it, not just you, but a lot of Filipino chefs out there are
yeah.
getting mixed reviews on why do you got to be creative? It's already our cuisine is already fusion. You don't need to yada 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 yada. You've heard it all, I'm sure.
Um,
Tell
well,
me.
first of all,
Hmm.
I think that anybody who labels our cuisine as a fusion, I
Hmm.
think is wrong. Like
Okay.
just straight out, I think it's wrong.
Okay.
Um, I like to try to change somebody's mind and just the terminology, just like explaining balot. How do you explain Filipino cuisine? I like to tell people that it's an evolutionary cuisine. It evolves, right?
Okay.
It evolves with each iteration of who we are as a country, right? Um, think about it throughout history, pre-colonial times, pre-Spanish period. We have the indigenous tribes, right? The 13 indigenous tribes. We
Hmm.
each had our own way of doing things depending on our environment, what
Yes.
ingredients we can get. I mean, if you lived, think about Pangasinan alone, right? My dad's
Oh
province. Think about
yes.
Pangasinan. There's Pangasinan by the coast, and there's Pangasinan that's inland by the
Inland.
mountains.
Yes.
So dry fish, fresh fish, right?
Hmm.
Go even further. My mom's from Cagayan Valley, from Apari, one of the northernmost points in Luzon, right? Um, she's Ilocano too. But then over there, you have a lot of fresh seafood, as
Mm.
compared to something my dad would eat. Like danggit and tuyo versus like, oh,
Yes.
freshly grilled sardines or freshly, all these different things.
Hmm.
The reason why I say this is because we already had a rich history in our indigenous culture alone, right? Great
Hmm.
food. But then even before the Spaniards came, you got to remember the Philippines was a major trading point. between the Chinese, the Malays, and
Yes.
we became a trading point, even for the Dutch and Portuguese have made their way over a long time ago, but we were never colonized then.
Mm-hmm.
So in that trading point, from the China becoming that main focal point for all these different areas around us, we were introduced to soy sauces. We were introduced to certain different grains of rice, all these different things.
Yes.
Pork was introduced to us later on, right? Even though we had indigenous Boers, the pork that we eat now, it stems from other sources that
Yes.
came through. So each step from indigenous culture to trading point to now a Spanish colony, which the long-standing visitors in the Philippines are colonizers, right? They brought in so many different things to us that we then adapted and evolved with. Does that make sense? That's why.
Yes.
So to me, fusion is taking two things that don't belong together and forcing them together. That's what fusion is. For
Okay.
me, I look at it less like that and more so like I look at it from the philosophy of Bruce Lee, the way that he created his martial art Jeet Kune Do. He took what was useful to
Yes.
him and expelled everything that wasn't. That's not to say that it was wrong. It's just it wasn't useful to him. So that's how I look at our cuisine. We took the things that we really can use and adapt, and we rolled with the punches, and then everything else we kind of just let go. Some of the things we did not let go of, like Filipino spaghetti, yeah, hot dogs, and tomato ketchup. Great, a lot of sugar.
Banana ketchup. Oh my gosh. I saw an Italian reviewing it one time. He's like, banana ketchup? You put he just couldn't wrap his head around it. It was hilarious. But
that's the thing, though, is that we evolved with what we needed to evolve with. Banana ketchup actually is a fantastic example of how we evolved.
Yes.
Because tomato ketchup was too expensive. Tomatoes weren't native to the Philippines at that point.
Right.
We were introduced to us, but it was too expensive for us. So how did we substitute it? We took banana. Who's the doctor? Doctora something. She.
They named the street after her. What's her name? I forget. Yes, but I know who you're talking about.
She was a food scientist that created banana ketchup, and now it's this thing. Right, it's now a quintessential ingredient in a lot of people's pantries. So you can see where the evolution comes from, right? That's why Filipino food. That's why I do what I do now, is because I believe that our food is on this level, that is on par, if not better than other people's cuisines, right? But I get challenged quite a bit. Authenticity. The conversation of authenticity is such a challenging conversation sometimes, because then I get into arguments with other Filipinos. It's like because they're just blurting out this a lot of like just really dumb things. Honestly, like, oh, this isn't Filipino. I was like, it is Filipino. Who are you, the authority, to say that this isn't Filipino? What's authentic? So this is from the conversation that I had on TED Talk. It was, what's authentic to you isn't going to be authentic to me, but it doesn't mean that your authentic is to be imposed on mine, right? But what you try to do is you try to connect those things, because there's always a common denominator. There's always something that's going to connect you to, but the way that I grew up eating adobo is not going to be the same way that you did, but it's still, the flavor profiles are there. And the example that I gave actually was with sinigang. For a person who grew up in the Philippines, sinigang is classically made with, you name the ingredient, sampalo,
tamarind, guava,
tomatoes, sometimes
kamyas,
or sometimes calamansi, kansi style. There's so many different ways to make sinigang, but you have to understand what sinigang is first, which is a sour soup that is, the souring agent is a green fruit, right? It's an unripened fruit that is souring, because when you have a tamarind that is ripe, it's sweet, right?
Yes.
If you have any of these fruits, when they're ripe, they're sweet. So you're taking a green fruit that's sour and doing that, right? So that's authentic to us. We grew up with that. Okay. Now, if you went, which you did, you moved to the U.S. Let's say we
Mhm.
moved to the U.S. in the 40s and 50s. Let's
Mhm.
say, okay, you and I are a couple, right? We moved to the U.S. in the 40s. We have kids.
Mhm.
We grew up with sinigang, but we can't find tamarind. We can't find guava. We can't find we can't find these ingredients. But we moved to California in the 40s. We did
Mhm.
find is rhubarb or
Mhm.
green apples or even green strawberries. All
Mm.
these things, when you
Ooh,
eat them,
strawberries.
yeah, when you
Okay.
eat them, they're sour.
Mhm.
Like they're really sour, especially rhubarb. They're sour. So what if we use that to make sinigang, right? And then our kids eat the sinigang. They grow up eating specifically that sinigang.
Yeah.
So that becomes authentic to them. But when they go home to the Philippines, they say, "Oh, I've never had sinigang with some pollock before. I've always had
Right.
rhubarb." They're going to be like, "You're not Filipino."
You're not Filipino. Mhm.
But so do you see kind of where we're going? What's authentic to you is it can be influenced by so many different things, right? Your environment, where you grew up, how you grew up, how much money you had, you know?
Oh, I've gotten into it with people over adobo. I'm like, you don't put coconut milk in adobo, and been very humbled by, well, maybe from where you're from.
Exactly. So, but that's my point. There's
Uh-huh.
adobo, adobo sa gata. Um,
Right.
you have
Okay.
adobong puti that doesn't have
Tuyo.
soy sauce,
Like,
right?
yeah.
Adobo sa pula, yung pulang adobo, the one that has achuete in it or anado seed in it.
I've never heard
There
of that
are
one.
Oh, dude, there's so many. There are so many variations of a single dish based off of what you have,
Mm-hmm.
and my the thing that gets me at the restaurant is when the Filipinos that come in, they're super confident. They're like, "Oh, you don't know what Filipino food is. Your pancit, blah blah blah, or whatever. This isn't pancit or
Okay.
some whatever."
Okay.
But my favorite part is when you hear them talking even before they eat, even before they have anything, before they even touch their food, they're already formulating an opinion about what you do. And you have one of two choices at that point, right? As a chef, either you're going to change their mind or you're not.
Okay.
That's it. And I'm going to do my job, and I'm going to try to change your mind, your outlook on Filipino food. But if I don't, I don't care. Honestly, you can leave. The fact that people love leaving reviews on Google or Yelp or whatever it is just proves, it just continues to prove a fact to me
Mm-hmm.
that, like, why bother? Why bother listening to all this, right? It's because you're not going to change their mind. They usually come in with a snarky attitude. It's like, "I this is Filipino. Okay, we'll see," you know. But that's okay. Like I change it up. I do surprise people though. Like my pancit bihon, like for in my mind, I think it tastes exactly like my aunt's, except I make it completely vegan and gluten free. The reason why is like, I live in Portland and people, that's their dietary thing. But the
Sure.
fact that we can change these things, like kare kare is another big one.
Mm-hmm.
I don't make kare kare with bagoong or peanuts.
Okay.
I make I make my own, like, so I make a seed butter. So I use toasted pumpkin seed, I use pepitas. I make a butter out of that, and it
Mm-hmm.
tastes exactly the same,
Oh, that's
right?
beautiful.
And I don't put bagong in it
Mm-hmm.
because of the shrimp aspect, right? So here's the
Yes.
thing: the reason why I do both of those, I serve bagong on the side. The
Yes.
reason why I do both of those things is because the common allergies: peanuts
Mm-hmm.
and shrimp.
Peanuts and shrimp. Yeah.
Now, I can tell you how many Filipinos that have come in that have never eaten it before because they're allergic to peanuts and shrimp. So I say, hey,
Oh,
do
now
me
they
a
get
favor.
to.
You can have this. I have a really close friend of mine, Ryan, who's also a fellow martial arts instructor.
Mm-hmm.
He's allergic to shrimp. Could never eat oxtail. Could never have the kare kare. I said, you can have this one. He's like, you're crazy. And you could see the hesitant because being Filipino, it's ingrained in us that it's made with peanut butter and it's
Yeah.
made with shrimp. But that's the thing. We can change people's minds. You can change if you fundamentally know how to do something, you can keep that core concept and change just a little bit of it without losing that core, without losing the soul, the spirit of a dish or a technique or anything like that. And man, he ate that thing. And he was like, "This is amazing. This is what I've been missing out on." But I kind of spoil it for him a little bit because he can't have it anywhere else. Because I'm the
Oh,
only one who can make
yeah.
something like, you
Unless
know,
he learns how to make it himself, but
and more the merrier. If I can share
yeah.
that ability to enjoy something, man, that's why I got into cooking in the first place. I just like feeding people. When people are, man, like that's why in my opinion a lot of like food YouTube channels and shows
Mhm.
are very popular, is because people love to watch other people eat. I mean, it's weird. Like I love watching, like, you know, I can watch somebody eat all day, and if I see that smile on your face and I see you really getting into it, man, it really just it's very heartwarming, the fact that you're making somebody happy, that you're providing a level of sustenance and enjoyment and experience, for somebody. So yeah.
That's a beautiful thing, and I love that you're able to do that, and use all of these skills to design your life, your restaurant, your customers' experience. Just bravo, Carlo, bravo.
You try.
But anyhow, tell us a little bit about your restaurants for folks that are local to the Pacific Northwest and coming up Denver. Where can we find you if we're in the neighborhood? And
um
what would you
yeah.
have us look for?
Well, our restaurants are here in Portland, Oregon, and in Beaverton, Oregon, the next town over.
Mhm.
Um, Here in Portland, we have Magna Kusina. It's located in the southeast quadrant of Portland, Oregon. Nice little corner spot, hole in the wall, serving modern takes on traditional Filipino food. And then in Beaverton, Magna Cubo is actually a dedication to a lechonaria, or the baliwags and the andoks of the world in the
Mm.
Philippines. Remember those old little stalls that you
Oh
just late
yes,
night, they're little rotisserie rows, and you just pick a chicken.
yes.
It's my dedication to that. That's one of my favorite things to eat is andoks whenever I go home to the Philippines.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and yeah, so we opened that. We're there, and then coming soon, Denver, Colorado, we have Magna Kainan, which is going to be a much larger project. Definitely a much more kind of like a smash up between the two restaurants here
Mm.
in Oregon. And we're also opening, as of right now, an unnamed rooftop bar in Denver,
Ooh.
attached to the restaurant. So
That
we're
almost
super,
sounds like a speakeasy.
the opposite of a speakeasy. It's actually, speakeasies are, get it. You have to go to a secret location,
Yeah.
but this one's going to be definitely just sitting on the top and overlooking downtown Denver. So it's a beautiful
Oh,
view.
that's gonna be great.
Yeah.
I'm not going to Denver anytime soon, but I'm already like, oh gosh, I imagining go. That sounds
Exciting. Yeah,
wonderful.
yeah. I mean, we're pushing what we're introducing to many strangers what Filipino food is,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm showing our fellow countrymen, our people, as well as people who are familiar with Filipino food, what Filipino food can be. And there are amazing chefs out there doing the same thing. I'm not the only one.
Yeah.
We're all
Yes.
fighting. We're all fighting the same fight. We're all um, trying to lift this platform up for all of us and for the generations to come. Right? I'm old. I'm getting too old for this. I just at some point there's going to be a young kid that's going to be the next, you know, great Filipino chef that's going to continue on this journey. And all I hope is that I get recognized for just helping, for
Mm-hmm.
helping push our culture and our food along. So
Well,
nothing much.
it looks like you're doing well and getting recognition for it. So I'm really pleased and proud of you,
Oh,
really,
thank you.
Carlo. I'm proud to know you, even for just a little, that little while in college. But I wanted to ask, like, I would be amiss. We're out of time, but I have to ask, like, I remember the last time that I was in Portland, because I used to go every year for the beer fest. I remember not seeing any Philippine. There was no pho, and there was no Southeast Asian presence as far as restaurants was concerned. It was a lot, for those of you who've never been or aren't familiar with the town, it's a big microbrewery foodie town with lots of great stuff, but it's mostly European cuisine, or American, very white, if you will.
Yeah.
And then Denver is a very, very similar, area.
Yeah.
How are you breaking into these? I mean, the palette is just so different.
Well, Portland now has grown to a much larger, a broader palette. There are a lot of Southeast Asian foods now. The Vietnamese is very popular, so is Thai food out here. But there isn't very much Filipino representation. I will say that for sure. But you're right. It's very white, both very white cities. But here's the thing, in these communities, you could tell they crave flavor. They crave culture. They crave. That's why that's why people latch on to so many different aspects of so many different cultures, whether it's rap music, the way that people dress, or anime, manga, all these, people. Our culture is our own, and we're very proud of it. But I'm also very proud to be able to share it with people. If people adopt it as their own, great. If they want to co-opt it on their own, then we'll have a conversation. Well, if a white guy's going to open a Filipino restaurant, I'll have a conversation with that individual. That's how I look at it, right?
Sure.
But I think the biggest thing really is just like, I think people crave flavor, they crave culture, and that's what we bring. We bring culture and flavor and hospitality. Those are things that we are very well known for.
Yes.
And so it kind of does make it a little easier to break into these little sectors, because we're providing something that is something different and something unique, something that is just not your day to day and average thing. It's not a burger. It's not. Don't get me wrong. I love burgers, fries, and pizza and tacos like anybody else. But look at all those things, man. They all come from somewhere else. Tacos come from Mexico. Burgers come from Germany. Fries come from Belgium. Who cares? Like, the thing is that as long as it's good, like, if I was serving crap food, I wouldn't survive,
Yes.
But thankfully, knock on wood, I like to think that I'm not serving something that's not delicious, so.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
Well, Carlo, thank you so much for taking the time, spending this time with me and our viewers, because, talk through. Thank you for watching today's show. This is Frances Bauer. See you on the next episode of Design Your Life. Bye-bye now.
Ang ubo, mabilis lumala. Kaya dapat agapan. Dapat New Soul Mix Advanced Syrup. May 2 times zinc para ang ubo, imbis na lumala, tulungang mabilis mawala. New Soul Mix Advanced Syrup.
Unilab yan. Ang 40D tumutulong patibayin ng vital organs, iwas sakit sa puso at iba pang sakit.